already is all there. Just man needs a direction from God to find that all these elements which he already has within himself go into a proper direction. This was the first aspect of man's original nature. What is the second aspect? A united body of Sung Sang and Jung. So what is the second aspect? Huh? A harmonious body of positivity and negativity. So this symbolizes the harmony of man and woman in conjugal harmony. Let me just explain it a little bit more. There's the harmony of man and woman in conjugal harmony. So Dr. Lee, he says, of course we can see this also in plants, in animals and minerals, that there is some unity, between plants, the male plants and female plants, the male animals and female animals, and also the positive and negative elements in the material world. They're also combined through the give and take action of this different aspects of positivity and negativity. But this is only something biological. Only something biological. It's not really something which is related more to the existence of man. Yeah, for instance, like the question comes for instance about marriage. Yeah, is there any foundation of marriage? Yeah, like what does what does communism say? I'm not 100% sure about this, but I heard in the beginning time that communism was even against marriage. Because marriage is like some possession of one spouse, of one partner. It's almost like, ownership of one, how do you say, if a man has a wife in his possession, almost like tools for production or something. I don't know how you say it exactly. So if I understood it right, I'm not 100% sure about this, but in the beginning there was no marriage when the revolution was made in Russia. That there was no marriage actually, that men and women could live so together without any marriage. But it caused so much confusion, it caused so much chaos, that later the institution of marriage actually was reinstalled. Yeah, I don't know, Gabriel, if you know a little bit more about this.
I don't know.
Yeah, but I heard that in the beginning that actually the communist thought, Marxist-Leninist thought was very strong against marriage, because marriage is like possession of one human being, which is against the fundamental idea of communism. So, unification thought says, what is man? Man, because from God originates, as we said already, Sung Sang and Jung Sang. And Sung Sang and Jung Sang are expressed positive and negative aspects. So, according to unification thought, a man is a united being of Sung-sang and Hyung-sang, characteristically positive. So actually, according to unification thought, that is man. Yeah? That is man. And a woman is a united being of Sung-sang and Hyung-sang, characteristically negative. You know, I know that this would come up. Yeah. This is how unification thought makes the definition of man and woman. Of course, very clear, Dr. Lee also explains is that actually both men and women have male and female characteristics. Very obvious, you know, that a man has female characteristics, also a woman has male characteristics. Why? Because God has both, and also simply that man and woman can have a relationship with each other. Right? They must have some common elements. If the woman is only woman and the man only man, you know, philosophically there's no relationship possible. Yes, actually a man must have female qualities, and also a woman must have male qualities, so that really man and woman can have actually common base for understanding. But of course, the beauty of the relationship is in the difference. So therefore he said, a man is a being with characteristically, or should have more male or positive qualities. Should have, right. And a woman should have more female, but you know, as nature sometimes goes, it goes a little bit different. But anyway, that's the philosophical definition of man and woman. Man is a united being of characteristically positive, and woman of both Sung-sang and Hyung-sang. So actually male and female is not just a biological definition, yeah, but it is also, like according to unification, so through characteristics also. That it sees not only just the biological difference, but also a spiritual difference in the mentality, which is normal. Yeah, I think which is normal. And yeah. So therefore, only together they can actually completely represent the image of God, because we always emphasize the image of God as one. Yeah, Angela? Good. Man is a united being of Sung-sang and Hyung-sang. Maybe I can write it down. Man is a united being of Sung-sang and Hyung-sang, characteristically positive. Characteristically positive. And at the same time, resembling God's positivity. Resembling God's positivity. Is that clear? And the same thing with woman and negativity. Woman is a united being of Sung-sang and Hyung-sang, characteristically negative, resembling God's negativity. Is that clear? The same. So actually, simply from the biological union, Thomas, you just wait. Oh, what? Something?
No, it's just something else.
Okay, good. If you can. So therefore, from the biological union, simply from the fact that man and woman fit biologically together, that does not give any foundation for marriage. That does not give any foundation for marriage. Because animals are not marrying. You know? They're not marrying. They don't have just one partner, they have different partners. Huh? But it is from the viewpoint of the resemblance of God, because God is one and he remains one. So from that actually, from from the viewpoint of the resemblance to God's image, from there comes the foundation of marriage. Not simply from the fact that man and woman somehow fit together biologically. Do you understand? Is that clear? So actually only from the viewpoint that man and woman resemble the image of God, resemble God's positivity of Sungsang and Tungsang and God's negativity of Sungsang and Tungsang. And God being one, that man can only have a common relationship with God of also as man and woman also become one in marriage. So that through this they really can make the foundation to receive, to make a connection, to have a common factors or common elements with God. Yeah? Do you understand? So therefore only together, man and woman, only together they can be harmonized and perfected and complete even in the ultimate sense. Only together man and woman can really be complete, resembling the complete image of God. Yeah. So President Kim will probably go very much in depth, because in both workshops I remember, both in the first workshop and in the second workshop, he goes very much in depth about this point. You remember also in the study guide he's writing about this, and he said that actually alone man represents only half of the universe. Yeah? You remember this from the study guide from President Kim? Alone he represents half of the universe. So together, man is the encapsulation of the entire universe. Yeah? Man represents the entire universe, and therefore together, in which position can then men stand as husband and wife? Microcosm is right. No, another? Subject and or? Subject is right. Or? Dominion. Therefore actually the third blessing comes after the second blessing. Do you realize? The third blessing comes after the second blessing. That man and woman together symbolize the completeness of the universe, and that after the completion of the second blessing, man can then completely fulfill the third blessing. Because man and woman together, they are the encapsulation, der Inbegriff in German, Inbegriff des gesamten Universums, or encapsulation of the entire universe. And therefore man can then become dominator of the universe. So therefore, not only in relationship from philosophical viewpoint, man's relationship to God and man's relationship to the creation, but actually even for the relationship among husband and wife, this is of great help. Because the wife is representing an entire half of the universe. You understand? Or the husband. For the wife is representing for the husband the entire half of the universe. The husband is representing for the wife the entire half and another half of the universe. Yeah? Which gives such a complete different feeling of respect, of complete different feeling of treating each other. Yeah, if you know that you have half of the universe in front of you. If you have half, so it gives a complete different feeling of respect and understanding if you know. I'm sure that President Kim will talk about this also more in detail. So therefore, the perfection of husband and wife symbolizes the perfection of creation. Yeah? The perfection of husband and wife corresponds to the perfection of creation. Perfection of creation. Because it's the completion of the creation of the universe. Yeah, the completion of the creation of the universe. Man, as husband and wife together, can take the position of dominion over creation and thereby actually fulfill ultimately the purpose of creation. Do you understand? So it's actually absolutely necessary for God to fulfill the purpose of creation that man and woman come together actually in marriage. Yeah, it's absolutely necessary. Also, it symbolizes the unification of all mankind. Because in one sense, the man is a representative of not only of the entire positivity of the universe, but actually man is the representative of all men of the world. And women is a representative of all women of the world. So it does not only symbolize the perfection of creation, but the marriage even symbolizes the unification of mankind. Because a man is similar to all other men in the world, and a woman is similar to all other women in the world. Especially a marriage already symbolizes the unification of mankind. And of course, then ultimately it symbolizes the full manifestation of God. Because God's nature can, through the unity of man and woman together, fully express. Maybe the 3 points I can just write down. It's the completion of the creation and the universe, completion of the creation of the universe, the unification of all mankind, and the full manifestation of God. The marriage, right? So God actually wanted to raise man to perfection, that man actually can finally become the full manifestation of God. And this has like a double purpose. In one sense, if man becomes the full manifestation of God, God can have a full give and take relationship with man. Understand that, right? As man becomes completely, as a unity of husband and wife, God can have the deepest possible relationship to this unit of husband and wife. But at the same time, as man becomes the full manifestation of God, God's idea can be transferred actually from generation to generation. Because why don't we know about God? Simply because we don't have true parents. Yeah? Because Adam and Eve were created in the image of God, but since they never reached perfection, they never became the full manifestation of God. Is that clear? So therefore the full manifestation first of all is relevant in relationship to God, that God finds his object, where he can relate to, but at the same time also that God can manifest himself in this world, that children, grandchildren, and descendants can recognize God through their parents. Therefore God needs also this full manifestation. Yeah. And then of course ultimately the purpose of the creation would have been fulfilled. Because the entire creation can only be fulfilled at the point where man takes a position of dominion over creation. And not only man. In German we have the word Mensch when we talk about man, but in English you say man and woman. Yeah? So it must be complete. Only once man and woman together can take the position of dominion over creation, thereby becoming the microcosmos of the entire creation, having Sung-san, Jung-san, positivity and negativity. Is that clear so far? So the last point which Dr. Lee says in his guide, he said, actually solving the problems between husband and wife is the key to solve worldwide problems. Yeah? Really? You'll find out. Yeah. Yeah, but I think it makes sense, because if really spiritually the marriage has such a kind of incredible meaning, incredible significance, then actually, the disunity between husband and wife is not just a matter between one human being and the other human being. And it has some effects on the cosmos even, from this viewpoint of unification and so on. The disunity and struggle between husband and wife has even effects on the cosmos. solving problems between husband and wife is the key to solve worldwide problems. Yeah. So even President Kim, he said many times, like, this is a starting point, like the unity between husband and wife, yeah, for the reaching of perfection, fulfilling the purpose of creation. So he said it's like one very, very key point, that husband and wife, for a starting point for God to work, to continue to work. Okay, and then I would like to conclude here. There's no question then to this. What? Yeah, Thomas? What is man is a being with individuality. So where does individuality come from? Original image. And what aspect in the original image? Huh? The individual image, where does it come from? From the ideas, and yeah, more concrete. From where does it come from? From the inner Jung-san, right? So from the ideas, and how is it called within God? Very simple. Individual image. Right? Very simple. The individuality comes from God's individual image. From God's individual image. So do only people have individual image? Animals? Plants also? Atoms also? No? No? Who's for yes, who's for no? Animals and plants have... Who says no? No. Oh, great. So, anyway, there are more people for yes. I have to continue on yes. No, it's so that actually, because every creation is part from God. Every creation has individual image. You know, God doesn't make any production on an assembly line. Remember? Like when we make a VW, the next VW is basically the same as the first one. Maybe some mistakes, but anyway, basically the same. But this is the same. It's not the same actually with the creation of man and with the creation of animals and with the creation of plants, even with the creation of crystals. Small crystals have an individual image, right? They're all different. Yeah, they have their individuality. But now Dr. Lee makes a very interesting statement. He said, a being of lower value have less distinction. Yeah? So Zoan is not completely wrong. Yeah? Right? It's not completely wrong. So being of lower value have less distinction. Among the birds, or you know, sometimes you cannot distinguish exactly which is which bird. Or even among the leaves on a tree. If you compare one tree with another, it's not always so much distinction. But the being of higher value is a clearly defined individuality. Being of higher value has a clearly defined individuality. Which is also like leads to a very interesting conclusion, because somehow individuality has even a connection with value. Yeah. Normally, for instance, like because materialism doesn't recognize any individuality as such, but it is so that a being of higher value has even greater individuality. That does not mean a being of higher value has greater individualism. I think it's a different story, because later when we talk about the theory of education, we talk about the education of unity and the education of individuality. We talk later about this concept when we talk about theory of education. But this is basically so that a being of a higher value has more a clear, defined, and more clearly shaped individuality. and a being of lesser value, the individual marks are less distinctive. So it's a lesser distinction between one creation and the other one. Is that clear? So therefore, it's even the individuality is even connected with the value. So God has given unique individuality to every person. Why? Why did God give unique individuality to every person? Yeah? I cannot understand. Huh? Two? Because he has individual image. Yeah, that's right. But why did he give then also man? It's correct. But why did he give? There's more joy. More joy. Yeah, like President Kim says it in this sentence, which I really like very much. God wanted to have as many objects in as many circumstances in as many circumstances as possible to receive the greatest possible joy. This is the reason why he gave the three blessings. Yeah, so God wanted to experience from every human being unique joy and unique inspiration. So every person has some uniqueness where this person is unique to any other person in the world. To any other person in the world. I can say it sounds like maybe a little bit funny, but you know, every person is a world champion. Wow. Yes. Every person is a world champion in one particular aspect, you know, which represents his uniqueness from the viewpoint of God. Actually, he's not only world champion, what is he? Cosmic champion, from spirit world and physical world, which is even more. Yeah? If you just happen to have a characteristic which is measured in Olympic Games, okay, we got the gold medal, you know. But many of the characteristics which are unique to man, and where man really is unique and better than anyone else, are not necessarily measured in Olympic Games or in world records, in running or, you know, in, what do you call this, fighting or wrestling or so. Yeah? But this means like every man has his individuality, that God wants to experience unique joy from every person. So this is also one reason why actually the world never can remain incomplete. Because as one person remains incomplete or not perfect, God's joy cannot be complete, which he can receive from the creation. Do you understand this? As for instance, one man or one woman would remain imperfect, God's joy also could not be complete. So therefore, this is also one reason why we believe in universal salvation. So therefore, what is this unique point? This unique point, actually every man and woman has to find it himself. Yeah, this is the reason also many times why Father puts us almost like into limit situations, into difficult situations, and even many situations. Actually, Father wants to give us very varying training. Like for instance, MFT fundraising, always you experience different situations, different people, different circumstances. Yeah? So Father wants actually, by putting us through such kind of training, he wants us to find out what is our uniqueness in relationship to God. Because then it is possible also to develop this unique relationship, yeah, which really builds a strong relationship to God. Tiger Park, when he gave sometimes his principal guidance, he said actually when he was asked how to overcome problems or how to overcome difficulties, he said to one brother or sister, I don't know exactly the circumstances, but he said, don't concentrate so much on your negative points, on your difficult points. Just try to find this unique point which God has given to you and try to develop that point. Then you will be able to overcome your problem. Don't concentrate only on the problems and the difficulties you have, but try to find out that unique point in which you are better than everyone else and try to develop this point. So this is like what, like Tiger Park when he gives his principal guidance. This relates to the individual image of man. So actually, due to the fall, it happens that man's individuality has been many times misused or completely disregarded. Yeah? That people like rulers or kings have completely considered men almost like animals or machines or tools for achieving their own purpose, but not seeing really the individuality of man. Because parents have the concern, that their children can develop themselves completely. Yeah, true parents have, in a sense, their concern that as they raise their children, as they have the concern for their children, they want that the children develop their full potential and also their full individuality. But in many cases, rulers, kings, dictators, and so, they just have seen men as a tool for their own purpose. And therefore, actually, men were for them all the same. Basically, uniformized. And people were all the same because they saw people only in the frame of accomplishing their own purpose, their own tools to accomplish their own purpose. So that, therefore, many times in history, the individuality of people has been completely disregarded. And I said before, communism does not actually respect individuality to a certain extent, but either it is in order to save face before the free society, before the Western world, before the free nations, in order to save face and also because of some kind of public image, or because it is from some pressure from inside due to the internal demands of people living in a country, that some freedom is given. But it does not necessarily come from the theory of communism itself, that freedom is completely given. So therefore this is important. That is the expression of the individuality does not happen due to the encouragement of communism. So the materialistic view, dialectic materialism, does not encourage individualism or the development of the individuality. Yeah, so therefore art, the special beauty of art actually only develops when actually the artist can express his individuality completely. Yeah? So the special beauty of art can only develop when the art can express his individuality. And that, from that viewpoint, in the theory of education, we talk about this, that actually every person has the potential of genius within himself. Yeah, that based on the education of heart and love, and based on the education of norm, ethics, and based on the education of technique, as all the three levels of education are completed, that actually every person has the possibility of a genius. It's even said, like this term, what is the goal of the theory of education concerning the third blessing, is the development of a genius. So genius is not only Beethoven, or Shakespeare or anyone, but a genius has every person. His unique personality developed to the fullest degree. Everyone can be a genius. That's unification thought. So the individuality is a very important element for the development of art. So therefore, man should use his freedom to express his individuality. Man should use his freedom to express his individuality, so that in this way man can return joy to God. So therefore this individuality is given from God. Yeah? Man is a being with individuality in the image of God, who has the individual image, and therefore having individuality. So therefore it's something given by God and not something which happened accidentally. Is there any question to this? So what is then the next step? Yeah, Peter?
I was discussing you mentioned about genius. What would be, or can you give some examples of the motivation behind a genius in the
No. It's the theory of education tomorrow. Tomorrow. The second lecture tomorrow, or maybe even in the afternoon tomorrow. Then we talk more in detail completely about this. Yeah, it's now a little bit, I just mentioned it to explain about this in relationship to the individuality, but that's the topic of tomorrow. So what is the next content in comparison to the image of God, the original image? A being with divine image and a being with divine character. being with divine character. So what is the first element of man's being with the divine character? A being with right, with heart. I didn't say anything. I wonder that you have a question already. Yeah. Yeah. And this is number one under the divine character. Like this. Understand? Huh? I'm sorry? It belongs to the divine character. The divine image has 3 points: united body of Sungsang and Tyongsang, harmonious body of positivity and negativity, and a being with individuality. This connects to man as a being with the divine image. The next one is a being with divine character. It's the next aspect. And the first aspect is the aspect for heart. What is heart? Definition of heart once more? Right. Heart is the emotional impulse to seek joy through love. So Dr. Lee also says this is true even for a martyr. He uses the example of the martyr. How do you say martyr? Martyr. Who for some reason must have a motivation, some spiritual joy or some spiritual fulfillment, that he was willing to endure martyrdom, that he was willing to do this. Yeah, so that this also relates to man as a being with heart, that his purpose coming from his heart must have had to do more with the fulfillment of spiritual joy rather than the fulfillment of physical joy. Do you understand? So even a martyr acted out of his heart, especially I would say a martyr acted out of his heart because of his desire for some spiritual fulfillment. So therefore the martyr also, he was seeking joy through love, but his greatest joy of course was connected to spiritual joy. So this desire for joy through love for joy through love cannot be repressed. Which originates from man's heart. Because the heart has the emotional impulse to seek joy through love, therefore the desire for joy through love simply cannot be repressed at all. So fallen man is not aware that true joy lies only in true love. What is true love? Love in relationship to God, and especially Unification defines true love as the love which pleases others before pleasing oneself. Do you understand this? This is like from Unification thought, like pleasing God before oneself, pleasing the partner before pleasing oneself, thinking of the children before oneself. So fallen man is not aware that true joy is only in true love. I can write the definition of true love. True love pleases others before pleasing oneself. Pleasing oneself. That is true love. And where is true love realized? To true parent, that's right. But more general, true love is realized where? Exactly, in a true family. Of course, through true parents, that's right. But true love can only be realized through the true family or through the original family centered on God. What is true love? The three kinds of true love, you remember? Parental love, conjugal love, children's love. So only through the experience of these three forms of love can true love be realized. Love is actually something which you cannot learn. In a sense, you must experience it. Right? Love cannot be learned in a sense that you learn as a blackboard, unification, so that's love. Great, now I'm always for others there, you know. So in some sense, it's almost impossible to learn love. It's almost impossible to learn love unless you experience it. And Father said also many times that, so therefore, man can experience true love, you know. It's developed in the original family. Yeah? The original family centered on God. Centered on God. Only there men can develop true love. But you remember this diagram which I showed before. You don't need to repeat this because I mentioned this I think the day before yesterday. That this is this desire for man. The desire for love is like the motive for him to grow. Because love is a life element which man needs. Remember? Love is a life element. For instance, because God wanted to build a relationship of love with man, man needs love from God in order to maintain his spiritual life. So actually, there was first the motive of love from God's side, and therefore, out of this motive, the life of man came into existence. So therefore, the power of love is stronger than the power of life. You know this from the second chapter lecture. Because the motive and the purpose of love was first, before the motive was to create life. So the power of love is always stronger than the power of life, because the motive of love was first there. Yeah? So what happens actually at the point where love is destroyed? You know, at the point you will eat of this fruit, you will die. Yeah? Because love is the source of life. Therefore, at the point where love is destroyed, actually also life is destroyed too. You know, there's some. It is so that because the fall. I mean, I come now a little bit into principle, not unification thought, but you know, love is never a one-way street. You know, love is never a one-way street. In a relationship between a man and a woman, for instance, if a man is in love with a woman, but the woman doesn't care, can we say there's love between that man and that woman? No, that's the problem of the man. That's his problem, you know. So if the man is in love with the woman, but the woman doesn't respond, it's the problem of the man. But it's, you know, there's no love between them. But only at the point where the woman is responding, then you can say there's a bond of love. And the same thing is also true in the relationship between God and man. God gives his entire love to man. But we cannot say that there is a bond of love between God and man if man does not respond. Do you understand? If man does not respond, even so God gives his entire love to man. There is no bond of love between God and man if man doesn't respond with his entire heart. And where does man develop this heart? In the family, exactly. So man develops this heart of love in the original family through experiencing children's love or conjugal love and also ultimately parental love. So then actually man completely develops his ability to respond to God's love. And then actually we can really say there is a bond of love between God and man, and then man is also alive, spiritually alive. Yeah? Because God loves everyone, but still people are not alive. Yeah? God's love is almost like the sunshine everywhere. Yeah? God's love is in the entire cosmos, everywhere. But still people have no life because in their love they never developed their ability to love in response to God. But especially with Lucifer, with Eve, where did Eve's entire concentration of love go to? Yeah, in direction to Lucifer. You know? So the entire concentration of Eve's heart went not in direction to God, even though God gave her all love. But her entire concentration went into a different direction, thereby disconnecting her heart from God, and thereby killing actually her own spiritual lifeline, the love between God and herself.